She's here, and quickly I'm going to read her short bio about her. Awesome. Hi, Leah. I'm so sorry.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you for coming. Thank you so much. Leah is a psychotherapist who specializes in anxiety, depression, grief, trauma, and psychology. By having a variety of clinical roles in various states and countries, she has developed diverse professional experience and global perspective. Currently, Leah sees individuals and families at her practice in Charlotte, North Carolina. She is also sought out by corporations to work with executives and teams on improving communication, productivity, and job satisfaction. Leah grew up in Indiana with a basketball in her hand. In Jamaica, we say she's a little tomboy. Sports not only encourage growth on a number of levels, but the experiences challenge her to become more comfortable with vulnerability. She completed her master's in Austin, Texas, and then proceeded to allow the travels bug to take over. Yeah, she loves to travel, visit and go and explore. Her passion for adventure has not dwindled though. It simply is morphed with her motherhood. Leah and her husband strive to provide their two daughters with the tools to gain confidence to seek out their own adventures every day. Welcome. Welcome, Leah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
All right. So, Leah, who are you? Who is Leah Marone? You have a story?
Okay, let's see. Do I have a story? I think I'll go with that rather than who am I? I'm still trying to figure that out on a lot of levels. The story I think I want to share is just one that happened last week. And it's so funny because I talk a lot about the dangers and the negative things that can occur when we multitask. And, we all fall victim to it on occasion. And last week, I don't believe it was Wednesday, I fell victim to it. I was in the kitchen cooking dinner, transitioning from, my dining room to my kitchen from work. And now I was in mommy role, making dinner, kind of debriefing with my husband about our days, helping my daughter with her homework. And then, my other daughter's singing, which is a beautiful voice, but it was just like, let's pretend we're in the kitchen, or let's acknowledge we're in the kitchen and not performing in a theater for thousands of adoring fans. So I could feel the physical effects of, wow, my balloon's about to pop. I'm at capacity. My patience level is not probably where I wish it would be. And I have some options here. And thankfully I was able to dig deep, and I was able to find a breath, and I was able to kind of acknowledge or verbalize to everyone like, hey, guess what? I'm running low. I need a minute. So, I was kind of trying to acknowledge, like, I'm not where y'all need me to be right now. And my youngest daughter, who's 8, she kind of looked up from her homework and she said, oh, Mom, you're a therapist. I think you can handle it. And I kind of got wide-eyed and I kind of chuckled, but I also was shocked. And I also first, of course, internalized it and thought, oh, Leah, have you been teaching your daughters that you need to be on all the time and that you need to deliver? And then I immediately didn't make it about me. And I thought, okay, this is a really good learning opportunity, right? This is a really good learning opportunity, not only for my daughters, but for me. And I think being a clinician, being a therapist, I have run into this idea that a lot of people that I'm surrounded by, or apparently my 8-year-old, thinks that I have it together all the time, right? I'm helping people with their struggles, so mine, should be managed, and I'm okay. And that I'm sure all of you know that that is not the case. And a lot of therapists fall victim to the concept of, let's distract ourselves with everyone else's problems so we don't have to deal with our own. And that doesn't work, right? That comes crashing down. So it was a very good reminder. And I really thought, okay, I need to be maybe a little more deliberate in presenting and sharing with, especially my girls, that like, we're not going to be 100% all the time, and we shouldn't strive to be. And we need to take a pause and we need to acknowledge it. And also the people that I'm around, especially my family, especially during these times when all of my roles are simultaneously together all the time and needing my attention, that I'm going to need some time to take a breath, and I'm not going to be able to do everything at once, and I shouldn't. So I know that was a little long-winded, but I thought it was a pretty pertinent, important story to share.
Yes. Awesome, awesome. The little one, you know? So that's how everybody view you, Leah. You are the professional, so you must always have it together. We're only human. We will snap. We will break. There's a limit to everything, you know? So we have to be careful of the message. Yeah, that was taken across, definitely. So Leah, have you ever abandoned a creative idea that you believe in because others thought you were probably a fool? How they think about you and that idea? So you left it alone.
Sure. I think, you know, I'm kind of going through that right now. And I don't know if it's necessarily that people think that I'm a fool. It's probably more of my own insecurities and kind of my self-judgment. But I think, you know, I'm striving to take a professional shift here and have for a while. I've had a practice for over a decade now, but I'm really getting into kind of speaking and training and doing other things. And I will say, it's been something that I've loved to do, and it's been a fabulous journey. But I think the biggest thing for me was, you know, I'm a clinician. I was never taught how to market myself. I was never taught how to negotiate, how to have those conversations. I've never been a social media person. So all of these things that kind of put me a little more front and center, or like, hey, this is what I'm doing, I've had a really hard time with. And so I think that's been something where I have a little bit of the imposter syndrome, and I have a little bit where I know I can do it. I know I'm knowledgeable. I know if you give me the opportunity, I'm going to be able to do it. But I think it's that getting there that's been a struggle. And it's probably my own, not that I think I'm a fool or that I can't do it. It's just, I don't know where to start. And so it's been really helpful for me to ground myself by just identify what step one is. Take a risk.
Yeah. Definitely so. That's so true. How do you know when it's time to follow your dream and fulfill your purpose when you're on your life's path?
Let's see. Well, I think I've always operated on having a dream. I've always operated on, I mean, I really strive to maintain presence, but I always want to have something that gives me hope, that generates excitement, that generates something that I'm reaching for and that's going to challenge me. And so if I lose that for a second, I think it's important for me to take some time to try to feed that, or to just step back and let the universe kind of like push me in a direction. So it's kind of that even balance. But I think I know when to really go for something or put energy into something is when I can't stop thinking about it, right? When I can't stop thinking about it and I want to learn more and I'm ignited. And I think one of the big things, I think with, you know, when I was in 4th grade, I kind of told myself, I'm going to play basketball in college. That was just my thing. I'm like, I'm going to do it because I knew other women or young women that were doing it, and I just thought they were amazing. And I really wanted to be part of that and that accomplishment and all the hard work that put into it. So I think it's also like learning from other people, learning from our role models, learning from the experience that they've created for themselves and that they've taken the positive risks to insert into their lives.
Okay, so observe others, be open to learn from them. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And be patient, right? It takes patience. It's not going to happen overnight. And that's a big one. I got to be patient, be patient.
Be patient. Be patient. And there's nothing wrong with you wandering and pondering and being stuck, trying to figure what path to take. Okay, awesome. How do you handle what I call the terrible thrill? Fear, doubt, and confusion.
How do I handle them? Well, I hopefully have gotten better at this as my life has moved forward and I've gotten older. But I think at first, fear, doubt, and confusion was something that early on I kind of identified as a negative, just purely negative. And what am I doing wrong? I'm not supposed to feel these things. Where now, you know, I think it's part of the process. You're supposed to feel these things. You're going to feel these things. And so it's not comfortable. It's not something we want to feel all the time, but it's also something to first validate. and acknowledge, like, this is how I'm feeling. I don't particularly like it. So is there anything I can do about it? What steps can I take? And so I look at a lot of times fear, doubt, and confusion as not only an opportunity, I think, for learning, but an opportunity, I guess I acknowledge to myself, like, there's some room to grow here. So they're scary and they're hard, but I also think it's just part of the process. And if you're not fearful of something, or you're not having some doubt and confusion, I don't think you're pushing yourself hard enough.
Awesome. I mentioned that earlier, that somebody said that if your teeth are not chattering and your knees not knocking,
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Think about when you experienced and conquered a major obstruction in your life. How did you dominate or develop from that major obstruction or blockage that you came up?
Yeah. I think a major obstruction that I dealt with in my life that's actually been very humbling and helped me professionally is that I struggled a pretty great deal with performance anxiety growing up, as an athlete and just in general. And I was one of those people where I had the facade of confidence. I'm tall. I think I can carry myself pretty well. You know, I think growing up, if I was nervous, if I felt ill-equipped, if I was suffering from some physical symptoms of anxiety, I don't think a lot of people knew. And that's generally the case with a lot of us, right? But I think my anxiety and my internal, just my thoughts and the way that I would talk to myself, the expectations that I have for myself, especially on the court and on the field when I was playing soccer and basketball, really were a hindrance. And it was something I really had to fight through. I always could, not always, but most times could deliver physically. And I had that confidence piece about me, but my dialogue when I was playing was terrible. Don't miss this shot. You suck. Everybody's looking at you. And it was very self-centered. It was very, just highly insecure. And that was something I really had to fight through extensively in order to achieve my goals. It was a major obstacle. And I envied my teammates and my friends who could just kind of coast through and just show up on the court or show up in life and just like be present. I couldn't do that yet. And so I think that's something I've really worked on, overcome, and I really pay a lot of gratitude to my experiences just as an athlete, I think, and how they developed me to not only work with my clients, but just in life. I feel a lot more resilient.
Awesome. Awesome. So you turn that weakness into something powerful to push you forward, make you more resilient. Awesome. Assist us now into understanding, Leah, grief and how it plays into us transitioning.
Yeah. Well, I think this year, especially this past year, it's just a commonality that we all have, that we've all experienced or continue to, is grief. And a lot of times when we think about grief, especially in our culture, we think of simply just death and dying, but it encompasses so much more. And I think we have all had to adjust and deal with and accept and navigate loss on a lot of different levels. And that could be, and I think the big thing too, and I've noticed a lot of people is they fall victim sometimes to the comparison game. Well, their loss is way greater than mine. What's wrong with me that I am feeling this? Or, someone's always going to have it worse than you if you really want to play that game. But the feelings that you have and the loss you experience and everything that you're going through is valid. It's real. And I think we can all scan back, especially throughout this last year, with things that we've lost, but also the things that we've probably reconfigured and we've had to readjust to. And so I think when I think about this past year and think about COVID and some of the other political and social things that have happened, especially in America and the United States, there's a lot of grief. And it also normalizes, I think, in a healthy way, that those phases of grief, and sometimes they're all intermingled and sometimes you go back and forth and there's no rhyme or reason, but that is normal, for lack of a better word. Yeah. And then that's part of the process.
Right. So just acknowledge your grief, own your feelings,
Yeah.
Awesome. It is said that stress is a silent killer, and it can be viewed positively and negatively, for sure. How can we readily, when we are worried and stressed, handle certain mechanisms You understand what I'm saying? What are the coping mechanisms? Sorry.
Well, I think the previous speaker, Dr. Annika, if I'm saying that correctly, she gave us a lot of insight with that, right? And so I think the biggest thing too is that stress is not all negative. It's not, and it's something that we, the reality is that we can't avoid it. And the reason is because there's so much within our world and in our day and what we experience that we can't control. And I think as humans, we like control, we crave control, but really, if we break it down, we don't have control over much. And so we are going, what's that?
You need to know when to let go. We're not in control. Surrender.
Correct. And I think too, just, in terms of stress, I think if it's not addressed, normally with stress, it's something that, again, is like, there's an external factor, right? You can typically identify what is your trigger for stress. And it's typically something that once that trigger starts to wind down, or it's over, or, the environment changes or whatever, it tends most times for those symptoms to go down with it. Now, if those symptoms aren't addressed, or they're not acknowledged, or they're not dealt with, that's what morphs a lot into that internal part and anxiety. It's kind of that dull undertone, right? It can be very intense, but it's just there. It kind of waxes and wanes. So some things too, particularly to do in the moment. And first and foremost, I think when you feel a physical symptom, or you're feeling that urgency, or, those things that typically go along with stress and anxiety, is to first and foremost acknowledge, and this is hard, but acknowledge, like, yes, I am feeling stress. And this can take a hit on our ego. If we don't, just like, in the previous session, we don't like to hear that. We don't like to validate it sometimes for ourselves or hear it from others. But the reality is that we have to acknowledge what's going on in our mind, what's going on in our body, and that will help us readjust. Just a real quick thing that I found that's incredibly helpful for people in the moment, and I work with a lot of people that have panic attack disorders and really high intense anxiety disorders. But on the flip side, just experiencing a large amount of stress and the shock and the things that come along with it, if you find that your breathing is out of whack, your heartbeat is, moving at a faster pace, you're feeling physical symptoms, something that's really helpful, if you're not able to do it up here, grab an ice pack, grab a cold bag of peas, grab something that's cold and put it right here. And that's going to shock you, right? That's going to shock. But it's actually something, if you think about, it's going to generate energy. Your body's going to respond to this, and you'll breathe. Your breathing will change. You'll have to welcome that, or not, and you'll have to respond to that. And it gives you that pause. It generates new thoughts. It generates new reactions, and it kind of breaks that hormone production of what's happening with the stress and anxiety. And so that's one. Another one too is I have a client who actually, he will get up from his desk during the workday and he'll be like, I gotta just do like 5 push-ups. And he'll do 5 push-ups, or he'll, run down the stairs in his office building if he's there. And he's acknowledged the fact that, like, just moving your blood, or changing your blood flow, is so helpful. It creates that break. And so those are just a few things to kind of feel like you're regaining a bit of control back and generate new thoughts. And then that logic can start to seep in, where you can identify, all right, this is how I'm feeling. I do not like it. What can I control? What are my options? And where can I surrender, or what can I give up that's not mine to own?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Leah, for those quick tips. Now I know how to handle my stress. I love that. Guys, make note. Hope the books are open. This conference is about creating a fun, free, and fulfilled life. Based upon what you have observed from working with others, do you honestly believe, worse with the pandemic and all, we can have that fun and fulfilled life as we desire? You honestly believe in it after all that we're going through now?
Absolutely not. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I just want to see the shock. No, I absolutely do. But I think it's also, we have different things to work with now. Our outlets have changed. Where we got validation has changed. Where we got connection has changed, right? So our expectations have to change with it. And so, I think it's important too, to identify for yourself, what is fun? How do you describe fun? How do you describe happiness? How do you describe love? And work from there. And you know, that's your baseline. And I think too, a lot of times we miss it. We miss those opportunities because we are so focused on the future, or we're so focused on the past that we miss what truly makes us feel alive, and that's the present, right? And so something too, just if I talk about presence and a real quick mindfulness activity that everybody can do, and it's highly effective, it's simple and it's effective, is I refer to it just as the 5 senses. And so, you know, you can do this if you are experiencing some uncertainty, some uneasiness, some stress or anxiety, or you can do it, just make a daily rhythm of it, like when you're in the shower or when you're outside or in, you know, wherever you are. And all you do is basically you scan your 5 senses. So you get really in tuned and detailed with what you see, right? So what you see, almost like a toddler. I see this is in the crack, I see a crumb on the table, I see that my folder's red. Very, very detailed. You go through what you hear. You go through what you're feeling. What's the temperature of your body? How do your clothes feel on your body? You know, and you don't judge, you just acknowledge. You know, what do you smell? What do you taste? Are you thirsty? How does your mouth feel? Are you tight? You're just going through and you're making observations of what the world, what your environment has to offer you in that moment. And what that does is, it is almost like, if you imagine it just being a cleanse, being a whoosh, right? You are executing or tapping into a part of your brain that anxiety and stress have no room for. There's no room for them. You're going to another part of your brain. So it gives you that break. It gives you that reset, right? And it's amazing. And it's almost like too, if you think about, if you have incredibly sore muscles and you got to get that lactic acid out, right? And you're stretching and things like that. Now that stretch may relieve a lot of it. It may not relieve all of it, but it will relieve some of it. And you got to get some repetitions and be patient. This is a wonderful practice. And I think too, if you think about just being present and welcoming the little things, welcoming the emotions, that the little things, the connectivity, the, you know, acknowledgement that you need to give yourself, that's going to be our starting point. It should be our starting point for joy and connection, and continuing to build our resiliency.
Powerful words and tips. I love them. Just be welcoming. Awesome. Use up your 5 senses. What you see, what you hear, what you smell. Very good. Leah, how can we go about increasing self-awareness? That will come about the welcoming part that I mentioned earlier and so on. How can we increase?
Yeah. Well, I think a big one, and again, it's a very simple practice, but, and you may have to schedule it in because we tend to forget, but check-ins, just daily check-ins, even many times throughout the day. And this doesn't mean you check in and think, oh God, I'm feeling this way, I have to do something about it, or I have to judge it. That's not what this means. So depending on how you operate, if you're someone who a 1 to 10 scale would be good for you, where 10 being fantastic day, I'm on top of the world, nothing can stop me now. 1 being like, oh dear Lord, I'm covered in dirt and I can't get out. What number are you? And you just say whatever number you are, and that's it. And guess what? It's so interesting sometimes how you'll see those numbers fluctuate during even a day, right? And that confirms kind of that things are fluid. Now, you might be going through something really intense, which we all have at some point this year, and your number may stay for a while, right? And that's okay. And if it's really something that is stagnant, you're like, okay, I've been a 3 for a while now. What's going on? That's when you validate it, you acknowledge it, then you move into that solution focused logical part of like, what can I do? What are my options? What can I control? What is my first step? I also think too, another way to just check in with yourself is just acknowledge what you're feeling or what you're thinking and take note, or how your body's feeling. We don't do that enough. We are very good, I think, which is a wonderful thing. We're very good at checking in with each other, right? We're very good at that, but we don't do it to ourselves. And this just builds connection. This builds self-awareness. This helps us gain that, those tools necessary that when stuff doesn't go our way, when we're faced with hardship or a difficult conversation, we have some things on reserve. We have some things to pull from.
Yes, awesome. So check in with ourselves. Don't forget yourself. You're important too. You can't help others without first helping yourself. Awesome. What are healthy boundaries? What are healthy boundaries, and how can we incorporate it in our lives? Healthy boundaries, what are they?
Yeah. So boundaries, a lot of times, I think when I say the word boundaries, I've done some trainings on this, and I always like to first hear what people, how they define boundaries. And a lot of times people will come up with words like rigid, cut off, maybe cold, maybe not caring about other people. It's very interesting. There's kind of a negative connotation around boundaries. And I think that the healthy boundaries that I speak of really require self-awareness, right? You really need to understand, am I stretching myself too thin? Am I taking myself and my needs and my just how I feel, what I think, what I require into, am I taking them into, in accounting for them? Am I thinking about them? I think that's important. And so a lot of times boundaries is that self-love. That's acknowledging what you need, what your motivation is for certain things. Are you involved in a healthy relationship? Is it something that nurtures you? Are you being fulfilled by what you're currently doing on a day-to-day basis? It's pattern identification, and it's acknowledgement, and it's self-awareness, and it's creating these necessary boundaries, if you will, so that you can operate fully when necessary, and that you can operate in a way that's just basically indicative to how you want to live, right? And you have to also, I think, realize that you're worth it. You're worth omitting those things in your life that aren't empowering you, that aren't adding to your growth and your peace. I mean, that's easier said than done, right? That's easier said than done. I think a big one, and something that I strive for, I mean, just if I had to speak a little bit about my profession, early on in my days, in my early 20s, I took everything home with me. I mean, it was just one of those things where, I mean, I'm dealing with all these traumatic cases and all these things, and I'm hearing all these things all day. And I was operating under the notion of like, how can I fix this? How can I save this person? Which is incredibly self-righteous, number one. But it's like, what can I do? And I wanted to solve. I wanted to save. And I thought, okay, this isn't going to work. I'm exhausted. I'm going to burn out real quick. And I'm not being effective. This isn't my stuff. I got my own stuff. My role is not to fix and solve and do all these things. My role is to support and not solve. My role is to create a space, then ask the right questions and validate the emotions behind what people are experiencing so that they can take ownership of what they're going through and empower them to take the steps necessary, right? So I think a really good boundary for everyone, regardless if you're a clinician or not, is to go with that motto of just support and not solve. Listen to each other, create that space, but you don't have to give direct advice. You don't have to do that. You need to ask the questions where people can come up with their answers and where they're at on their own. You know as well as I do, when you've maybe talked with a friend or a colleague or family member and they're in a pickle, they have a dilemma that they're going through. We've all given direct advice. Well, you need to do this. Well, you should do this. Well, I don't know why you're doing this. 9 out of 10 times, people are not going to follow your direct advice. And this is frustrating for us. And guess what we've done? We've created a dynamic where we have ownership. We've created ownership in their issue. We're not supporting it. We're immersed in it. So that is a really healthy boundary that you all can take with you in your lives in whatever way, is that motto of support and not solve. Let people own their stuff and you own yours. Be a support.
I love the part that you said that, Leah, because even with me and some of my friends, sometimes they'll say, Carrie, I need to talk to you. I'm like, fine, you need to talk to me. What I've adopted, though, is to say, am I going to listen to you only, or should I give advice? Tell me, what's my position here before you start talking? Because when I give the advice, as I said, they don't take it and they come back and tell you the same story and you give them the same advice. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating and annoying, and it takes a toll of you and eats at you. And you may snap at them, and then they have their issues otherwise. So we have to be mindful of that, indeed. Could you tell the ways in which we can live in the present while preparing for the future?
Well, again, I think it's just, integrating some type of practice into your day that helps you be in the here and now. And that's a tall order. You hear that and you're like, yeah, we need to do that. Why don't we do that? But we don't. We tend to be so future-based or past-based. And that's, I'll tell you what, that's what generally encourages and empowers anxiety. That's it. So really good thing, and just something to share with you guys that I'll share a lot with my clients, especially during this time. 2 tips. One of them is creating some bookends for yourself. And what I mean by this is an AM bookend and a PM bookend. And so this is something in your AM that's yours. This is something for you. This could be a number of things. This could be if, you know, this is when you exercise. This could be if you have trouble getting out of bed, and your AM, PM, or your AM bookend is going to be, you know what, I'm struggling every damn day to get out of bed. So my AM bookend is going to acknowledge the fact that this is a really hard task for me. And I am going to stretch in my bed for a while. I'm going to stretch in my bed, or I'm going to breathe in my bed, or I'm going to listen to a song in my bed, and I'm going to meet myself where I'm at. And after I do that, I have to take a step out of my bed. That's your AM bookend for the time being. You meet yourself where you're at. My AM bookend right now is that when I enjoy my cup of coffee, I just enjoy my cup of coffee. I don't check my email. I do not have my phone. I try not to talk to anyone, which sounds selfish. I try to find a place in my home or on my porch where I can utilize my 5 senses and be with my cup of coffee for 5 minutes. And that's my AM bookend. It's really helpful for me. A PM bookend might be paying gratitude for your day. It might be acknowledging you're sweet for the day, you're sour for the day, how you served someone today. You know, it might be something to that degree. It might be something where you have your cup of tea. It might be where you connect with a friend. It might be where you read. Something that's yours that you can be deliberate about. Because sometimes if we got our bookends, sometimes the middle is all a big mess and there's a lot in there we can't control. So having those 2 things at the start and at the end that are yours and that you have ownership and control of, I think that's really important for just a practice, a presence practice.
Awesome. So have your time, have your moment in the morning and in the afternoon, basically. Know when to just with, and that's just for you. Awesome. Could you leave us with a power word, I call it, or a power phrase, something motivational to propel us forth into 2021?
Yeah. I think a very powerful word is deliberation. So deliberation or being deliberate, right? And so I guess what that means is, like, be deliberate with your words, be deliberate with your actions, be deliberate with tiny tasks throughout your day. They seem tiny, but I'll tell you what, the brain loves to see things done from start to finish. Even it's as simple as cleaning off a plate and putting it in the cupboard, right? So I think being deliberate, and that can mean wherever you're at, and that's okay, wherever you're at, but just be deliberate and take some ownership in what you're doing. And I think that's, I don't know, I think that's a good one.
Yes, be deliberate, my people. Right there, you get it from Leah Marone herself. A lot of nuggets for you to push you forth into 2021. You can't say you haven't gotten it. You have gotten it from all our guests this morning. You are being prepared. It's all about the mind and you taking action. Leah, thank you so much, so very much for coming in. Thank you for your patience. And I wish for you nothing but success for 2021. All right.
Thank you.
People, remember, get to your lifetime access. You need these recording. Lots of value here.